Islam. All right.
First question for tonight. Or first question. What is your appellation?
My appellation, Walter Imhotep Davis-Bey.
What is your role in the Moorish Divine and National Movement?
Well, I say I have many roles in the Moorish Divine and National Movement. Starting off, I'm an officer in the Great Seal, National Association of Moorish Affairs. I am the Prime Minister or Wazir Al Rais for the Houston Territories. I'm also currently the acting the acting Assistant Grand Sheik of Subordinate Temple 7A in Houston. I also have my own business, Moorish American National Affairs. I issue nationality cards, and I get involved and volunteer with several other Moorish organizations.
Okay. What year did you come across Moorish science?
That's hard to say exactly, because when I say I came into consciousness was around 2010-ish, and I bumped into a lot of different information, including the Moorish information, but also the Hebrews, different forms of Christianity, the Egyptian information, all of the different Kemetic schools of thoughts, because there are different ones in that. I kind of really got a little bit more serious into it, I'll say, around 2014, 2015 is when I really started studying harder. Is when I took it a little bit more serious and realized these guys that are Moors, when I was watching a lot of debates and things of that sort, like, it was just certain things you couldn't get past, like, everyone has truth, and you'll find it all over. But the thing is, when it came down to the Moors, there were certain things in law that, I couldn't get by,
Why is it important to understand the science of nationality cards?
The science of nationality cards is important for us in particular when it comes to identifying ourselves in the public. We need to understand what that is, and that it's a commercial realm that we can operate in. And not all Moors agree, that we have to operate in commerce, and you don't. But the thing is, there are different kinds of nationality cards, in particular temple cards versus cards that are more commercial in nature. So the temple nationality cards are usually paper, no picture, things of that sort, and there's nothing wrong with those in your own private setting, but they're not meant to be used in a commercial setting or a commercial realm. And for the most part, people don't try and mix that up. But the issue comes in a lot of times now, I'll say since around the time when they issued the Real ID Act, which was not really a hindrance to Moors, but I believe a lot of people haven't really studied into it to really understand what's going on. So when you start making a nationality card and it resembles a commercial instrument, as opposed to being like the temple card, and you want it to remain organic and in that realm of where the temple is, but still use it when you travel commercially. That's when, you know, you start mixing public and private, and that becomes an issue, you know, which is why, you know, when we implemented certain international standards, which were up to the ISO standards, not just the Real ID Act. And the Real ID Act was actually just getting up to the ISO standards, which both of them in truth don't hinder anything from the Moors, because there's discretion in every jurisdiction that's issuing these things. That's another thing when it comes to issuing or the science of nationality cards is issuing them. Not everyone can actually lawfully issue nationality cards. The brother Bey was the first one, you know, to my knowledge, to actually copyright the Moorish nationality card. So if you're not a holder to that copyright, or taking these same steps to be able to issue a nationality card, by either, you know, obtaining these copyrights, or, you know, not using that copyright on your nationality card and coming from a different perspective in law properly, you know, then, you know, you could do it. But, you know, it's a balance to these things. You know, a lot of the people that are issuing nationality cards, you know, they put that AA 222141 number on there, which is a copyright number, and, you know, not being a holder, technically, well, not technically, actually, you know, you could be charged for it if any of the copyright holders, which I am a copyright holder, was to make a claim against you, you know. So it's a lot of dynamics when it comes to that, and I always preach to people to, you know, be aware of what you're doing and really understand all of the steps before you go into any different process. Islam?
Is it important to understand the science of a nationality card?
It's more important if you're trying to issue nationality cards to truly understand all of the science behind it. If you're just a holder of a nationality card, you need to understand just the basics more about your own personal rights and liberties, you know, as opposed to the science of a nationality card, as far as all the mechanics of it. But overall, there is some general knowledge that you need to know.
What is the difference between a public and a private Moorish American citizen?
Wow, that's a good question. To really give the best of an answer, I would need, you know, a dry erase board, a marker, which I do have, but we're not gonna get into that right now. But in short, it's the different hats that you wear. Any Moor can operate in the public and in the private, and there are certain times that you do operate in the public and in the private. But the thing is, people don't understand what the difference is and when you're crossing between the two. And that's really what the most important part is. And when it comes to Moorish status correction, which is one of the things I also teach, understanding that there is a public side and a private side, and depending on how you operate, really depends on what you need to do and how you need to start correcting things. So you can be a Moorish American in the private, but still have to operate in the public at times, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. And anyone that does operate in the public at times operates in private. You know, when you go home, family time, you know, is private. Anything in family law is private for the most part. The only time it becomes public is domestic disturbances, when you bring a public officer into the fold or something like that there. But, you know, everybody operates in the public and private. So you could say we're all both. Islam?
Should Moors have whole life insurance?
Absolutely. All right. Now, I'm not the most qualified to answer this because personally, my best friend who's a Moor is state licensed in insurance. So he would better be able to tell you about the types of policies, but what I can say is a whole life insurance policy is the method of banking that the Rothschilds use in their trust and how they hold their money or their assets, I'll say, not their money. Not just them, but other wealthy families, this is how they continue on their family wealth. You know, they'll get these whole life insurance policies, and they'll even get them, you know, on their children, you know, while their babies paying up to, let's say, 18 or 20 years or so, and maybe even having multiple ones. So at that time, you know, let's say it takes you 20 years to pay off these $2 million or $10 million policies, you know, however it is you can afford. But once you're able to implement that kind of thing, you could have them, one, given to them at a certain time, you know, outside of college, or, you know, once they reach the age of 30, or, you know, things of that sort, where they're able to have that asset and be able to use it, but also have that policy that they can't touch. So if something was to happen, they have everything, you know, laid out. And then they also use this in a way of refunding the family trust with these life insurance policies, so that if someone does pass or passes early and doesn't get to build up wealth of the family, or even someone, you know, totally slacks off and squanders off, you know, some of their, you know, inheritance that they did get, you know, if they pass, their policy will refund the trust. So yeah, that's definitely a science we need to get into, and we need a whole team of people working together on this. I have a few more out here in our territory where we're working on this theory with getting the trust together, personal and collective, I'll say, you know. And that's one of the things that I'm definitely keeping on everybody's mind is these different types of policies because of the way they're used. So yeah, Islam.
Are lawyers, politicians, and policy enforcers U.S. citizens?
Okay, that's a real good question. Technically, in a sense, in what you're asking, yes, because they're all public figures. In the public, meaning they're operating and have to operate in and with their straw man. So anybody that is state licensed, you have to operate in the public, which means you have to use that straw man. So yes, and while you're operating in that capacity, more or not, you're operating in the capacity of a U.S. citizen. Not to say that you can't correct stuff on the public side where you would be recognized as a Moor, because, you know, I know many Moors that are state licensed, say truck drivers, insurance, real estate, things of that sort. You know, and all you have to do is understand the difference of public and private. And when you're in that public time, when you're on the clock, you're operating as a U.S. citizen. You have to, and there's no other way to operate in the public, you know, but to use a straw man, you know. So in that sense, yes, you could technically say that the misnomer lawyer, barristers, or, you know, a couple of the names, attorneys, turn you over, of course, but you know, them, some judges and higher politicians do take foreign oaths, but we would have to get into, you know, a whole nother video for that, where we would have to break down a lot more sources to really make that one clear. You know, that takes some jewels. Islam.
Why do Moors fly the Moroccan flag and the U.S. banner next to each other after seeing the U.S. citizens infringe upon the Moroccans?
That's a real good question, and a lot of people are against that banner, and I can understand because of some of the Europeans, how they treat it, as their war flag and things of that sort. But what we must understand with that flag is that
it's a banner or a flag?
It's a banner, misnomer flag. I don't want to. There may be people that don't understand, so I speak on both levels. But basically, when you're dealing in government and diplomacy, operating between nations, you fly both flags, and it's basically, it's part of the contract. You hold, each other to that contract by that flag. That is like the Constitution when, the prophet said, that we must enforce the Constitution. The flag, it is that symbolically. It's the same thing. We, at the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, the sealing and signing of this treaty, put both of us, at a standing in commerce together. We signed a contract together in a sense. So we are showing that we're honoring that contract, that we're keeping up to our side of it, when we hold that. So when we hold that up, that's just like when we go into a courtroom and tell them, look, you must enforce the Constitution. What about the Constitution? Because that's one of the things that they try and sidestep, I'll say, a lot. And, we need a whole video going into that one there and breaking that one down, because that goes into different jurisdictions and things of that sort that I would love to get on video. But it takes the books, which I actually do have, but unless you read it for yourself, you don't get it. Islam.
What do you have to say to the Moors who choose not to fly the U.S. banner and they choose to fly the Moroccan flag only?
I mean, that's more their choice. I'm not gonna knock anyone for that. I do understand. What I will say is there's proper procedure when it comes to everything. Do your research, because I'm not gonna tell anybody exactly, what to do in that sense. I know several Moors that I deal with, Moors in the Great Seal, who don't want to deal with that flag. They only deal with our imperial flag and the continental flag. Nothing wrong with that, but when you're operating in commerce, if you're going to be traveling and things of that sort, you may send mixed signals. Islam.
Out of all these books, which one do you highly recommend to read first to start the collection of reading from these books that you have here?
Out of these here, I'd say this Black's Law Dictionary is probably the first one. For any Moors getting started, I say you need 2 years of definitions, and Black's Law is real good, but you need more than just that. There's a real good There's a real good book on R.V.Bey Publications, which is real good for books. I do recommend them for that. It's called How to Study, and it goes into a lot of the different books that you need to really break down things. One being Black's Law Dictionary. Another one being this one here, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. Is another real good one. If you don't have that, you need this to understand some of the or a lot of the definitions of things in the Circle 7. And if you're reading it without this here, you're missing a whole lot. Just like it's like the Black's Law Dictionary, but in that esoteric sense, you know.
And what's the third book you recommend out of book collection here?
Depending on what level you're on, I mean, the Circle 7, I definitely recommend highly to anyone get that one and start going through it. The Secret Symbol of the Dollar Bill. This is a real good one. I want to do a whole book report and video on this one here, going in with this one, but cross-referencing it with several other different books because it breaks down a lot of more science in here. It's real good for beginners. Like, I wouldn't never say, kind of to answer with your other question, any order with books, you know, it's whatever you're ready for, whatever your heart and your spirit tells you and draws you to. But I do recommend, you know, reference books first and getting into that just to have a real good understanding. Other one here, Consecrated Talisman. This is Prince Uriel Bey. It's actually a series, these 3 here. Once you do get into some advanced studies, really understanding definitions and things of that stuff, this brother has done a lot of stuff for the Moorish movement that, to my understanding, he finished some of the things that you could consider the prophet's work. And to my understanding, you know, he was taken out for it as well, you know. And this brother lived during our lifetime and did not have the fame and recognition during his time. And, you know, I only recently in the last few years heard about and got the books for this brother. And I will attest that these are some of the best books I've read in the last, since I've been in the movement. You know, had to bring them out. Islam?
Islam.